Hello, everyone. Welcome to CXO Spice. CXO Spice is a platform for the thought leaders to share their point of view on innovation and explain how to make it happen in the real world. I'm your host, Helen Yu. Today's topic is Inside Token Factory. Our special guest is Roman Chernin, co-founder and chief business officer at Nebius. Hello, Roman. Welcome to CXO Spice.
Hi, Helen. Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure having you here, Roman. To start, for those who don't really know anything about Nebius, can you tell us about Nebius and the problem you're solving in the AI infrastructure space?
Yeah, thank you. We're glad to. Nebius is a AI specialized cloud. So what we build is the infrastructure for all AI builders to enable their work. Full stack approach. So if you think about what we do to deliver our promise, we build several layers of technology. It starts from physical infrastructure. So we build data centers. Then we have hardware deployed there. We we partner with NVIDIA first of all, and we develop our own servers and racks based on NVIDIA reference design, which help us to implement some optimizations in IP. And then we build a software platform. We call it multi-tenant cloud. So we can serve with a high performance coming from AI specialization and with the convenience coming from cloud experience that developers expect to have in the cloud. Variety of customers in the AI sphere, starting from the small startups all the way through like growing startups, ISVs, software vendors, digital native companies, and the enterprises. And then we build the next layers of the offering on top of them. And one of them is Nebius Token Factory, the new product that we launched a few months ago. And you can think about it as a developer platform for those who build their products based on models, Gen AI models, first of all, LLMs, and not necessarily go down the stack to run GPU clusters and to run like large training jobs and orchestrate the infrastructure themselves. But for those who actually want to focus on the product and their customer use case. And it probably not the last layer and not the last kind of building block that we want to provide to the builders. Our idea is to serve all the customers who specialized in AI workloads with the level of service that they need. It can be scaled basic infrastructure. It can be cloud service that give them access to the compute storage networking in a convenient way. It can be developer platform at a higher level when you can focus on building like actual application and moving forward to enterprise world. It could be other services that meet customers where they need us to be.
Well, that's impressive, Roman. What inspired you to start the company? Tell us a little bit more.
This company is quite unique animal, I would call
Yeah.
it. We have we call it like prehistory of the company. Actually, the core team, first of all, the core engineering team and the founders team came out from the company called Yandex, which was the large search and then modern search company. I was there from 2011. I was head of search and then head of maps and navigation. So worked closely with other folks that we now at Nebius. And that was a large company that mostly operated in Russia and other markets around Russia. And then starting from 2022, when the war in Ukraine started, we actually left left Russia, and we brought 1,300 families out of Russia, mostly high-profile engineers, people who know how to build and scale, and people who wanted to live in the world, open borders, like with in a global world. From 2022 until 2024, we went through quite painful corporate restructuring. It took us longer time, but we ended up with getting our freedom, getting independence, and we inherited the talent, and we inherited, let's call, corporate structure. Yandex was Nasdaq traded company, and Nebius inherited this public status. We didn't have our Nasdaq bell moment because it happened for Yandex in
I
2011,
see.
and we just like changed the company changed the name and the ticker. So that was the context, like the company the company started, and I'm telling it because you asked what inspired us.
Mm-hmm.
And Yandex was AI company in the world where AI was not the word, like the big word yet. So we did a lot of products that were driven by machine learning, artificial analysis. So we were, for example, we were one of the largest customer of NVIDIA outside of US and China many years. And
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
built our first NVIDIA clusters to train search models from 2013 and so on. So when GPT moment happened at the end of 2022, almost immediately it became obvious for us that this is something that changed the world,
Oh, yeah.
and that AI will be a big thing, and that AI will transform every single industry, every single product in our lives. And again, we like, as many people, we probably didn't know what scale it will have and so on, but we understood this is something really important that's happening. And we also understood that this kind of journey of AI expansion, of AI adoption, will require a lot of infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And that we can find ourselves. We wanted to build company that works with other developers, and it was obvious from that moment that this company should specialize on AI, and it's happened. So we started to build this AI cloud. Um, I think what helped us that we had this core talent on different
Mm-hmm.
layers of the stack that you need, from physical infrastructure, people who know how to operate like hundreds of megawatts of compute, up to AI researchers that we also had in the team, and who could, at the early days, help us to understand what is the use case, what our customers will
Mm-hmm.
need. Like dog fooding is a big thing in the industry. So if you have people who use what you build from day -1, let's call it,
Yeah.
it helps you to align with the future requirements of your customer. So I think, like, if we the thing that helped us to move fast was this super talented core of the people that we had.
Well, you made it sound like effortless, but obviously it takes vision, right? It takes talents and takes many tons of effort behind the scene. So appreciate these helpful contacts. I also met your team at NVIDIA GTC recently. Very impressed with your team, Savita and the team there, as well as, saw the demo of the solution. Quite impressive, right? So Nebius often describes itself as a full stack and AI native. Now I understand the context behind the scene. What does that mean in practice, and how does it shape how you build cloud infrastructure?
I think that um, like what we call our customers also AI natives, a lot of our customers. And when we say we are an AI native, that means we build it like with the AI workload in mind. So it's not classical cloud that was, you know, shifted. It's not classical cloud that were where AI is one of the workloads. We do it for AI. We build like we build this system from the ground up, our physical infrastructure, our hardware, our software platform. They designed and they built with the idea like what workloads we want to serve.
Mm.
And it helps to make it clean, make it very laser focused on particular use cases. And we probably cannot serve all the workloads that people bring in the cloud. We cannot help people to host their SAP application or build general purpose application. That's true. But when it comes to serving people who build AI products, would it be training job? Would it be large scale inference job? Would it be data preparation work pipelines? We think that we can do it very good. I don't want to say the best in the world. We try to be the best, but we can do it very good because we designed it to be focused. And AI workloads are super intensive, and we
Yeah.
know it. We read all this news about the gigawatt scale data centers and so on. It's very high scale. It's very expensive,
Oh, yeah.
and it brings a lot of efficiency requirements. You don't want to lose any percent of your kind of performance, any percent of your TCO, the total cost of ownership, because the platform is not optimal.
Hmm.
And when you have such requirements from your customers, your specialization actually helps you to win because that's how you provide this every percent of optimization. If you think like again about full stack, we build data centers for AI workloads. We build specialized hardware that serves AI workloads. We build software specialized for AI workloads. And we can optimize it across the full stack. So we know how the next layer works. And we can go like, if you want to make it super efficient, we can go down the stack and we can extract every tick from the stack. And I think so far it works for us. And that's what we probably call AI native, built
Hmm.
for AI in the AI era.
Yeah, that, architectural approach sets really great expectation, right? Especially as you said, when customers start comparing platforms in real world environments. So when customers evaluate cloud for running AI workloads at scale, what differences tend to matter most, and where does Nebius consistently stand out?
Again, different workloads come with different requirements. If you think about large scale training jobs,
Hmm.
maybe the most important thing is reliability because if imagine you run the distributed job, if one node is one of thousand nodes is broken, you need to restart all your job again. When it comes to inference, reliability again is very important because
Hmm.
this is production workloads. If infrastructure is not reliable, then the whole product built on top of that cannot be reliable. But you have some like some tools to balance the traffic and deal with some issues. But here in inference, and I think you announced that we speak about Token Factory, which is our managed inference platform. I think there the most important part is economics. So this is the game of trade-offs.
Hmm.
Inference building. People tell inference. What is inference? Inference is when we serve customers and when the product works. So this is the stage when you want to meet unit economics in the most cases. there are some use cases that unit economics are not important, but in the real world, when it's would it be a native product that grows and wins their audience? Would it be workload within the larger company when you want to meet requirements to like protect your ROI? You think about this not naive trade-off. So you have quality, you have latency, and you have a price, right? And inference workloads comes to the infrastructure with a high requirements on what is the best economics we can get out of there. What is the best throughput we can provide with the limited resources? What is the best latency we can provide with the given budget? Like, because that's all the trade-off. I can serve the same model very slow and very cheap, or very expensive and very fast. And there is some distribution line. And what is the shape of this line, where I can put this specific workload on this line. This is the game. And we have a customers that it's not just the matter of mm, the matter of nice to have. It's the question of existence, because they are in the growth mode, and if you can squeeze out additional margin in your cost structure, actually you can convert it to the faster growth, or you can even convert it to the new use cases that you unlock that you cannot unlock without this, because again, people don't pay, or alternative is cheaper and so on. So this is the matter of economics, and not economics to save, but economics to grow.
Mhm. I love that. I mean, really economics to grow, right? Those differences actually become especially visible as team move from pilot into production. Many of the AI teams I work with can get early prototype working with proprietary APIs, but that momentum often breaks down at scale, right? Where does that illusion really start to crack in the real world?
Yeah, that's that. Thank you for bringing it. That's exactly what we see on the market, and I would say it's even a playbook in a positive way. So a lot of teams we work with, they start with the closed source frontier models, because at the small scale, the most important thing is just show the use case that works, right? Then in the next stage, when they start growing this use case, they got this real world limitations. Can you meet the economics? And by the way, the second important factor is, um, can you improve the quality with the help of the data that you have?
Mhm.
And this is where the best closed source models may start be limiting factor
Mhm.
for you as a builder. And that's where the moment when the open source models start playing, because the open source models are smart, maybe not the smartest, but they are smart, super smart, and they give you much more flexibility in how you can optimize them on a latency, performance, price, and how much you can optimize them and tune them with the data.
Mhm.
So the most of the work we do in Nebius Token Factory is helping people to switch from closed source models to open source models and scale with them.
Mhm.
Because the struggle there is, if you need to switch from closed source models that you get as a service, you don't deal with ML ops. You don't need to have people who know how to optimize them. They don't give you too much ability to optimize, but they take care about this as a service. So you just get the API, it works, it runs, you get tokens, and you build your product, right? Anyone can do it. When you switch to open source models, you theoretically can get better performance, better price, maybe apply the data and get better quality. But then you need to execute on that. And the reality that things not working. As simple as that. You got your like model weights from Hugging Face. You got your I don't know, VLLM from open source or SGLang from open source. Then you rent GPU cluster for someone like
Mhm.
Nebius. You try to combine it all together. It's not working. Like you need to know how to tune all those parameters. You actually need to know which model to choose. You
Mhm.
need to know how to scale it. And that's where like products like Nebius Token Factory come in game because we help you to get it again as a service with the
Mhm.
same experience that you had with open source models, but with flexibility of open source models. So we take care about deployment, observability, scalability. Um, we we know how to tune all these hundreds of parameters in the inference engines. We provide you fine-tuning capabilities as a service if you want to apply your data and improve the model. So we provide you kind of the developer suite
Mhm.
that works as a service, um, but with the flexibility of open source models inside. You can think about it. My like analogy I like is from the old cloud world, managed databases, right? So
Yeah.
uh, you can have a advanced DBA in house that will know all about your kind of data profile and will take care about backups and will tune the performance of the database and so on. Or you can go to the cloud and get managed whatever like Postgres or other database, and then you will get it as a service. So this is similar. You still can do it all yourself. Like, and we have a lot of customers that start building themselves, but then they realize that they better focus on product. They better focus on their customer, on their use case, on experiments with the quality rather than taking care about how should I update from one library to another or run all the consistent tests when the new model comes online. Is it providing the better quality? Um, can I extract more value from the new chips that NVIDIA releases and so like a lot of under the hood work, and that's where we can help. And again, we feel about our company, we think about our company as an enabler. So
Oh, yeah.
we want to help those great people focus on their great products and take all this kind of unsexy. We sometimes we say we do unsexiest work in the sexiest industry. So we we, we take all this kind of ops out of the table for them, hopefully successfully, and then they can focus on the product and build their stuff. And that's the game.
Yeah, makes total sense. I can relate to the complexity having served as solution architect earlier in my career. These components sounds easy, but it's not. There's so much, very can be very overwhelming when it comes to developer world, right? You raised an interesting point about token factory. So explain to us what that means.
In a nutshell, Nebius Token Factory is the managed inference and post-training platform. So what does it mean? It enables inference and
Hmm.
fine-tuning, post-training in more general terms for open source models, for the most popular open source models. So we take care about running them as a service
Hmm.
and enabling people to use them through APIs. So the thing we discussed, we take care about all scalability issues, optimization issues, reliability, provide security stack, all the things that people need when they build production use cases, uh, and let developers focus on their product.
Yeah. So when you saw customers hitting those limits, right, what did you realize was broken about how inference was being delivered, and how did that lead to Token Factory becoming a core part of Nebia's portfolio?
Uh, I think the main issue that developers meet when they start scaling is that let's call it naive implementations are not working.
Yeah.
So you need to take care about more comprehensive approach.
Yeah.
So think you run everybody is talking about the price of tokens going down and so on. But and that's true. And when people speak about it, they mostly speak about, let's say, one GPU or one node, one server and model deployed there. But then think if you run the model on scale and it's like hundreds of GPUs, it's distributed workload, then you have a lot of opportunities how you optimize it. So first, you do caching. You don't necessarily go to the model to answer each question, right? So then second, how you provision resources. It's like the workloads are not flat, and especially in inference, there are spikes. Can you provision only the resources that you really need? How fast you can provision them to serve the spikes, but still don't reserve excess capacity that you don't utilize. Economics come from that like significantly, right? Then what model you run? Do you need to run the vanilla version of the model, or you can do or you can use like smaller model that in this particular workload works better? Can you do speculative decoding pipeline that optimize again for this particular stream of the prompts, the performance? So there are plenty of techniques that you can implement when you think about it as a system and not just as a like one GPU with the model. And that's where economics come from. And that's what you cannot do actually if you don't um, if you don't uh, control the system, and that's quite a complicated job. You need to have flexibility, you need to have expertise on different techniques. You need to be up to speed with like what's going on in the industry, what is the best solutions, and it's quite a complicated engineering task. So there are obviously customers who can do it themselves, teams that can do it themselves, but a lot don't. And that's where the services like Token Factory playing, because again, we provide it as a platform. We invest to have all the layers of optimization, starting from at what type of the chips, which type of the model, at which type of the libraries to run faster, to all the layers of orchestration and beyond to optimize it as a system. So, and again, it's price performance for price performance quality game. So you have this triangle that you optimize. You can have smarter model that you run more expensive. You can have uh, cheaper inference on a high latency. So you need the system to make these trade-offs very transparently, and that's what we build for developers.
Yeah, that's very exciting, right? Think about it. We can now manufacture intelligence with token. So once that enter the picture, the result clearly changed the conversation with customers. So Token Factory, as I learned, right, has shown dramatic cost reduction up to 26 times in some cases. For an executive audience, what's really driving savings at the scale?
Again, the main thank you for the question. I think it's the most important one. I think that mm, the main thing people like don't fully realize that um, how much these trade-offs of cost, performance, quality are driven by specific use case of specific customers. So this 26 times optimization comparing with some of the closed source models that you were referring to, coming from the clear understanding what is the use case of the customer, what is the flow, like what is the query stream, what model we need to serve them with the needed quality, but with the optimal price, and building the system that optimized for that. So think you can choose less smart model, but still good enough for this particular use case, then you can fine tune it with the unique data that you have. It becomes even more smarter. And then you build like this system with all the optimizations that we mentioned. You do caching, you do spec decoding, all that, like a lot of techniques. Like don't want to go in like very detailed technical things, but you can do a lot of techniques that you will not see on the public benchmarks on the like vanilla models and vanilla endpoints, but you will see in a particular system, and that drives the cost reduction, that drives the performance improvements.
Mhm.
So uh, that's the secret of scaling.
Mhm.
When from we speak a lot about shifting from prototypes to production, and like prototypes you can build on black boxes, or you can build on a small scale deployments that made in a naive way. But then when it comes to the scale, you need to implement all the uh, you need to take in account all the complexity of particular use case and specialization of this use case. So it's working closely, answering your question, what drives the prices down and what drives the performance. It's working closely with the customer on the particular workload with expertise and building blocks that let you optimize for this particular workload. And then results can be tens times different from what you see in the public benchmarks. That's the secret.
Yeah,
Not
that
the secret. This is the thing of scaling.
Yeah, that deep understanding of customer use cases, right, and combined with advancement with the technology and talents really makes a difference. But cost efficiency is one dimension, as you mentioned, but long-term advantage often comes from how models evolved after deployment. So Token Factory isn't just about serving that models, it includes fine-tuning and reinforcement learning from human feedback. And why is it so important for companies to continuously improve these models
Yeah,
with their own data instead of treating them as static assets?
it's a great question. I think that data is the only mode
Yeah.
that exists in the AI era.
I love that. I'm
So
going to quote you.
yeah, so that's true because
Mhm.
um, the models quite commodity.
Mhm.
Uh, um, Nothing commodity in the scale, but for some extent. And organizations and the teams that own the data, uh, that understands behavior of the customers, of the users, that have a deep understanding of the use case. This is the real value today.
Mhm.
So, what is practically fine tuning or reinforcement learning is the way you bring your unique data in the model.
Mhm.
That makes model smarter, and smart in general model aligned with your particular use case. So you you can do not smart enough model smarter,
Mhm.
but what isn't even more important, you can make generally smart model aligned with your understanding what is right for your particular customer, for your particular use case, for your particular organization. Because think humans, you can invite a very smart person in the room,
Yep.
but if they don't know what is right in the context of this culture, of this organization,
Mhm.
of this use case, this generally smart model, a human, can act not that smart, right?
Yep.
Or can be useless to solve particular problem of you or your organization. right? So this fine-tuning thing is how you actually align generally smart models with the with understanding what is right?
Mhm.
And again, if you think about journey of products or journey of the organizations, you start from building prototype, and it's in general works. It even may work good, and then
Mhm.
you start scaling, or you start really implementing it in production. Think about financial organization, or think about use case when you need to make a decision and you want to take like person from the loop or whatever. So you may not be satisfied with 99% of quality. You need 99.9%. And this last 9%, 9 points, they may come not from the general intelligence, but from like very uh, sharp alignment
Mhm.
with the need. And here where the data will work, and fine tuning and reinforcement learning will work. And the same, if you need to reduce the cost, coming back to optimization, you can take not that smart model that you had on the prototype stage. But then applying your data, you bring it intelligence to the level that you need. And again, it may not be equally generally intelligent. It may not solve all the tasks equally smart. But in the particular case that you need, where you brought this additional knowledge in the model, it may become smart enough for you and stay cheap, and you start being able to solve your tasks. So that's why this fine tuning as a service is a super important part.
That's
Uh,
a very vivid description, Roman. But back to your point about data is only mode in AI era, and then context and relevancy are really what makes longer term success, right? Making that evolution work in practice requires coordination across many layers of the stack. So when
yeah.
a customer comes to you with a performance or cost challenge, what does the optimization process look like behind the scenes from infrastructure to software?
There are a lot of things that you can do again, but the general answer, we look at the use case and we look at the data and we look at the what we provide as a system. So, and then you break it down in different optimization blocks. What we believe we can do better than some other players on the market is again coming from our full stack, because we can do optimization across the different layers of the system. So think we can design data centers in a better way to serve large scaled workloads, make it like an energy more efficient and so on. And then when you build hardware, we think about software that will work on it. Um, and then when we have the specific workload, we can go down the stack and we can optimize. I don't know, we can do some specific setup of hardware that fits better this particular customer needs. So all those layers are work together. But the general answer, we look in the customer case and we look at what we provide as a system, not just as a uh, if you want, cabled black boxes. So it's not like the set of black boxes that connected with a high performance network. It's one system, so you can understand, you can deep dive in each component.
That makes sense. So as AI becomes core to enterprise operations, technical optimization is only part of the equation. Right? Building trustworthy, responsible, and compliant AI remains top concern. And what's driving that enterprises toward platforms like Nebius?
I think we still at the stage of technical advantage is defining factor.
Mhm.
Another thing I believe is today enterprises appreciate our AI nativeness, let's call it. So we learn from the most advanced customers, like in AI native world, startups or large startups.
Yeah.
Uh, and then we transfer this knowledge to our enterprise customers. So we actually, you can think about us as a bridge between this frontier work that's happening in the research and the startup world and enterprises. But then, to your point of the trust and building the service that beyond technology enterprises need. That's also true. So, and the trust is, you even cannot tell what it consists of, right? So
Mhm.
there are many components. There is a technological compliance kind of level of perfection that you need to meet.
Mhm.
Then there is a service, how you work with the customers that you need to introduce. Then there is your alignment with the customer. So how much you want to align with the customer, how deep you can go and learn what customers' real bottlenecks. And then your long-term relations, because cloud in general is, we call it post-sale business. It's not sales
Mhm.
business. It's driven, like when you sell, you just give a promise. Then can you deliver on your
Mhm.
promise? And I think uh, uh, we put a lot of energy, a lot of empathy to build the service that people will be satisfied with. Simple things. Be always on. Don't run the customer through, you know, 6 levels of escalation until you get the person who knows the stuff, and work closely with them to make sure that they succeed, and it pays back because customers growing with us and we are growing. So I think these are the principles we build on.
That customer-centric point of view is really appreciated, right? It doesn't happen that often with technology companies sometimes. So really, thank you for doing that. Roman, I've learned so much from you today. And to wrap up our conversation, let's step back and look at where all of this is heading. So looking ahead, how do you see the AI and inference market evolving over the next few years? And where do you want Nebius to be in that landscape?
I think um, the most exciting thing that we see now, and it will only expand in the next few years for me, is bringing AI from these foundational layer technologies to real products. So I think the most important thing that we started to see in general this year, maybe a little bit earlier, and that will accelerate, is we see AI in the shape of the products that people use and organizations use. And we are at the very beginning yet. I'm quite sure that if you look across all the businesses, all the organizations, all the use cases, we see first percents of organizations are using AI on scale in the first percents of their workloads. It's still just very beginning of adoption. And I think the main thing that drives me and our drives Nebius and drives industry actually is we see adoption, and uh, adoption will bring economics. We'll see economical impact. We'll have the we'll get the new requirements to make it more efficient and bring it to the new level of adoption. So I think this is the most important, and I think that's what we built Nebius for. And I think that for us as a company in the next few years will be the journey, like together with our customers, unlocking the new use cases, unlocking the new type of the customers. Now we work mostly with the digital and AI native companies. We'll see more and more enterprise adoption and building the platform and the trust that you mentioned that will let us grow with our customers. That's the grow with the market and grow with our customers. It's the most exciting. See your customers growing with
Mhm.
the help of your platform that you do. that you help them drive economics in the right direction, that you help them to scale, it's nothing better.
Rewarding, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's rewarding, nothing better.
Yeah, absolutely. Roman, thank you for that forward-looking perspective. Before we wrap up, let me recap three key takeaways from our conversation today. So first, early AI success does not guarantee scalability. A real-world production demands purpose-built AI-native infrastructure designed for high-performance inference from the start. I love, your vision about growing with the customers and then really being that AI, really for your customer or the forefront of that innovation along the journey with your customers. Second is inference has become a strategic business lever. Platforms like Token Factory show that deep optimization across hardware, software, model lifecycle can unlock order of magnitude cost performance gains. And really pleased to hear about your vision being a full stack and AI native provider. And third is enterprises want really that ownership and control, continuous fine tuning and reinforcement learning from human feedback and compliant ready infrastructure allow companies to turn their own data into durable competitive advantage rather than relying on static black box models, right? So I love your quote about AI, data is only moat in the AI era, and appreciate your explanation on how Token Factory can really play a major role in driving the speed, performance, and cost, right? And all kind of those factors and without losing the quality of the data. So, Roman, thank you so much for joining us and sharing how Nebius is rethinking AI infrastructure and inference through Token Factory. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Stay hungry, stay bold, and stay grateful.